Well, good afternoon. This is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant afternoon, and I hope this finds you well. I decided to do a whole bunch of separate videos. You know, there are things that I keep coming across and I'm going to put that in a video, I'm going to put that in a video, and it was going to be one longer video, and then it just got to the point where it's like, you know what, I have to do these in separate videos or it's just going to be way too long. And there's too much stuff. The stuff that's happening right now is absolutely staggering. And this story is quite unbelievable. I mean, if it wasn't from the Ottawa Citizen and the RT, that are fairly reputable sources of information, beyond belief. The Canadian military saw this as a unique opportunity to deploy methods previously only used against basically in a war zone and overseas in different countries like Afghanistan, and it will tell you that was one of the countries that they learned these Psy-Ops from. So they were basically poring over social media pages, not only to track people and track protests and so on and so forth, but they were using it to basically form opinions in the public's mind. And let's just read the article first, and then we'll come back and I'll do a follow-up. Okie dokie, here we go. And once again from RT, Canadian military saw the CVE outbreak as a unique opportunity to deploy propaganda on own population. This is so stunning, it's unbelievable. This is your own country. The Canadian military has acknowledged unleashing a propaganda op against its own citizens without government approval, insisting the CV outbreak presented both an unprecedented opportunity and a crisis to be averted. While the military acknowledged that the information operations and targeting policies and doctrines are aimed at adversaries and have a limited application in a domestic concept, that didn't stop those in charge from developing and implementing the propaganda scheme. The operation involved shaping and exploiting information supposedly due to the need to avoid civil disobedience during the outbreak and to ensure the information field was wide open for government messaging on the subject. Chief of Staff for the CJOC, that's the Canadian Joint Operations Command, Rear Admiral Brian Santapia, described it as a learning opportunity for all of us and a chance to start getting information operations into our CAF DND, Canadian Armed Forces Department of National Defence, routine, describing the response to the outbreak as an opportunity to monitor and collect public information in order to enhance awareness for better command decision making. I wonder what that might be. And this can only be described as truly bizarre. Via a separate initiative, the Canadian Forces also sought to glean information from public social media accounts. Where have I heard that before? In Australia. Fancy that. In Ontario, this is, including data on peaceful Black Lives Matter gatherings and leaders the Post found. Senior military officers claimed the data was required for the success of Operation Laser, a project aimed at helping out in long-term care homes affected by CV and inoculation distribution efforts in the north of the country. However, the Post coverage of the report didn't elaborate on how exactly BLM participants' personal data might affect Canada's inoculation distribution, and BLM organisers themselves pointed out that they hadn't held any gatherings outside or near care homes. I mean, this just sounds like absolutely BS. Are these people completely insane? Are they making up this as they go along? And what else? What else are they doing without authorization? This is what you see in China, in police states, in the old USSR, in East Germany. I mean, for goodness sake, are we living in a democracy or are we not? This is from Jacobin. Canada's military is spying on Canadian citizens. Fancy that. The Canadian military has been caught using Psy-Op tactics it honed in Afghanistan on domestic soil. That's Psy-Op tactics it honed in Afghanistan. The dirty tricks, which included a scheme to spread panic about imaginary wolf attacks in Nova Scotia, should worry anyone concerned about civil liberties. And yes, it should worry anyone concerned about civil liberties. Now, the fact that this is the Canadian military performing these operations, which were unauthorized, and I will guarantee that you will never find out who authorized these operations, because they were clandestine. Just as the same with the New Brunswick, with the wolves, that was clandestine. Nobody got into trouble for that. This is all planned. But it is clear evidence that the Canadian military, certainly the top brass, see very little difference between Canadians and Afghanis, and that is now ruled by the Taliban. So what are they saying? That they think that we are all potential terrorists? Or are they creating situations to prove what they believe is true? And what was all that nonsense about the BLM? I mean, what on earth did that have to do with anything? I mean, it just blows the mind. It absolutely blows the mind that this sort of place is taking place in Canada. And of course, let's just flip over to Australia. Let's take a look at this one. So from RT, Stasi of the suburbs turn neighbours against each other as Aussie police spend months tracking down anti-lockdown protesters. Months after an anti-lockdown protest, Australian police are using informers and Facebook posts to track down demonstrators accused of taking part in illegal gatherings opposed to draconian state-imposed restrictions on freedom. And this is just another example of how the state is now actively working against the very own public, the populace, and what can I say? I mean, these things basically speak for themselves. We are no longer in a friendly situation with our government. You know, it's so plain to see, and we will in Canada be following the same kind of things I think we've been seeing in Australia during the summertime as we move into our winter season. And you can see that the police are deploying exactly the same kind of draconian Orwellian methods to gather information on its own public. When, I mean, they have created the situation. They have created the situation where people are forming protests, where people do want to get out on the street. You know, I think I mentioned in a video the other day, you're talking about annexing 30% of the population. That's a significant number of people. That's 10 million people in Canada alone that you are going to cut off from basically not essential services now, but I can see it coming. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But as I say, that they thought, the military thought that this was an okay thing to do. Don't these people have families to go home to? Isn't there any kind of empathy or compassion or understanding or even a sense of right and wrong? And any country that puts its citizenry under those conditions are going to create conditions that are ripe for people gathering together and protesting the actions of the government. And I suspect, well, at some point you're going to see 10 million people in Canada on the streets protesting because their back will be against the wall and there will be no other option but to go out there and demand equal treatment. So be careful of what is coming down the track, be aware of what your government is doing, and of course the situation we're in has made it virtually impossible. It's made it virtually impossible to say anything, to speak out about this in any other format than the one that I'm doing right now. And if they want to shut this down, well, there you go. I'm sure it's being monitored. I'm sure someone in some sleazy little office somewhere is taking notes of every single word that I'm saying and putting me on some kind of a list. And, well, good for you, buddy. I hope that you can sleep at night. I know I certainly sleep very peacefully and very calmly because I'm speaking the truth, my truth anyway. And trust me, I have prayed. I have prayed that if what I am seeing is incorrect, please send me alternative evidence. Disprove what I am saying. But here it is. This is coming from your media, in fact. Your media. So take that for what you will, and well, think long and hard, my friends. And if you enjoyed this, please like, comment and subscribe below. And in the meantime, this is Houndog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant afternoon, and we'll talk very, very shortly. You take care now. See ya. Bye.